In October, when the nights grow longer and the days grow colder, it's time for Miss Sheila's somewhat scary stories. Today I'm going to be reading one of my favorite ghost stories ever, The Ghost of Nicholas Grebe. And it's written by Tony Johnston with pictures by S.D. Schindler, and I'm reading it with permission from Dial Books for Young Children. In colonial times, quiet Massachusetts valleys, dark with trees, threaded with rivers, and often cloaked in fog, gave rise to thoughts of the supernatural. There, among hidden hills, tales of haunts and ghosts abounded, tales such as this one. Towards year's end, above a rambling farmhouse, the moon rose cold and still. It shone through the window and onto the bed within, where the farmer Nicholas Grebe lay sleeping. In the luminous glow, precisely at midnight, the old man gave up the ghost. That is to say, he died. The next day dawned exceedingly cold. Unfortunately, as we shall later see, his shivering family hurriedly dug a grave, buried him with a prayer, and hastened back to the warmth of the fire. Outside, beneath pewter skies, Nicholas Grebe was left to rest, and a headstone with an angel marked his grave. 1 year later, to the very day, the family gathered at the farm. Everyone feasted and toasted the departed man. In the midst of the festivities, and by peculiar coincidence, at the very stroke of 12, a little dog felt the desire to go outside. As if by some mysterious plan, the animal trotted straight to Nicholas Grebe's shallow grave. He dug feverishly, heaping a pile of moon-silvered earth behind him. Suddenly he found something, thin and hard with knobby knobs on the ends, the bone of Nicholas Grebe. Just as the dog started back with his prize, a carriage stopped in the middle of the road. While the passengers alighted to gaze at the moon, the curious little dog scampered up into the carriage, climbed the steps, and slipped beneath a seat. Worn out from digging, he fell asleep. Presently, the people returned, and the carriage rumbled off with passengers, dog, and bone. As they melted into the night, something luminous and white arose from the grave of Nicholas Grebe. It floated into the farmhouse, settled itself in a chair before the fire, and lifted its voice in a resonant moan. From this night forth, I quest, till all my bones together rest. At once, everyone stopped toasting and began shrieking. They rushed to the carriages and rattled away, scattering down the dark country lanes like leaves before wild wind. Only Nicholas Grebe's frightened widow remained, and his unhappy ghost. The ghost began to haunt the farm, looking for the lost bone. Its restless rambles took it from one corner of the place to another. Sometimes something unseen set hens fluttering upon their nests. Sometimes something caused the lids of the kitchen stove to rise as if by levitation, and sometimes an unearthly wind whined in the corn, and ceaseless wailing filled the night. Forevermore I quest, till all my bones together rest. While Nicholas Grebe's ghost searched in vain, the pilfered bone had begun a remarkable journey. The mysterious carriage made for Boston, clattering straight to the wharf. There, one of its passengers, a sea captain, boarded a whaler bound for the polar north. And right behind him went the little dog, holding fast to the bone all the while. And once aboard, he sniffed a few sniffs, found a good spot, and quickly hid his treasure. Just as the whaler was departing, the dog, sparked by the excitement, began dashing about the decks, barking. "Great smacking flukes!" cried a sailor. "What's this?" And he set the dog ashore. So the ship sailed, but the dog remained, grieving for the bone, grieving like the ghost of Nicholas Grebe. Month after cold month passed. The whaler cut through the perilous waters of the Horn and sailed north, ever north, toward Alaska. Strangely, on the entire voyage, not a trace of a single whale was seen, neither barnacle nor blow. Bored as blubber, one sailor searched for something to carve to pass the time, and by oddest chance, or was it, he came upon an object tucked into a shadowy corner, something thin and hard with knobby knobs on the ends, the bone of Nicholas Grebe. The sailor decorated the bone with a scrimshaw ship, a present for his sweetheart, when once again they met. But that was not to be, for soon after, on a night ghostly with fog, the whaler struck an iceberg and sank like a stone. The very next day there came a fisherman gliding silently on a large ice floe. By a fantastic fluke, he stopped just where the ship had gone down and flung out his net. Along with a mess of shiny fish, what else should he retrieve? Marvel of marvels, the bone of Nicholas Grebe. Sorely in need of supplies, he rushed to a trading post and exchanged the bone for goods. So the bone came to rest, for the moment, between bladder floats and stacks of pelts. Now, all the time that the bone was traveling, the ghost still haunted the farm, day and night, night and day. And every year on the eve of the theft, it settled itself before the fire once again. Forevermore I quest, till all my bones together rest. 100 years passed in this way, precisely 100 years. On a night like that other night so long ago, a great moon rose. Its pale light washed the trees a spectral white. Inside the farmhouse, a family was gathered. The son had returned to be married, a sailor home from the sea. From far off Alaska, he had brought a satchel full of gifts, which he set down by the hearth. Just as the wedding began, a little dog snoozing by the fire awoke. He sniffed a few sniffs, made straight for the satchel, and began chewing happily. Soon he had chewed the handle off. He trotted it outside, dug a hole, and quickly buried his prize, a thin, hard object adored with a spidery scrimshaw ship and knobby knobs on the end. Bought at a trading post for use as a handle, it had at last come home, the bone of Nicholas Grebe. Suddenly, from nowhere and from everywhere at once, thunder clapped, lightning forked and flared, every lamp guttered as if blown by bodiless breath, and then, flapping like an empty sleeve, the ghost appeared and declared, "This very hour I end my quest, my bones once more together rest." And so saying, it was gone. But this was not the end of the tale. Not long afterward, someone chanced to stroll through the graveyard, and they noticed something that to this day goes utterly unexplained. The angel on Nicholas Grebe's headstone had vanished, In its place, a little dog was carved in the stone, and in his mouth he held a bone. And that was the ghost of Nicholas Grebe.